Thank you, everybody. I'm very, very, very happy to be here. This is like my favorite event of the year. And I'm especially happy to be here. I think it was always a kind of a dream to speak at this Kuppelsaal and to see it relatively full. So thanks a lot for being here, especially because this was not what I imagined myself talking. See, I kind of had a dream. And my dream was I would take the talk that I gave in 2022 about my personal data projects, tell you about how they all failed because they are wrongly deployed and nobody's using them, then tell you how I started in this new company and I learned how to, or I see how people can actually code way better with software development techniques and MLOps. And then I would code my personal projects again and come here and tell you these are the 6 steps that everyone, even me, can follow to make sure your machine learning projects are user-friendly deployment. But that's not my talk today. That's not my talk today because in the last 2 years, I have barely coded. I have not worked on my personal data projects at all. And I realized in December, before submitting the proposal, that if I wanted to give that talk, I wouldn't sleep in April. So I thought, like, no, I cannot sacrifice that. So I got to think, then what? Yeah, what could I submit? And I made a self-reflection of what has happened lately that's interesting to talk about. And then I looked back at the years of my professional working life, and I've changed jobs a couple of times. And a bit before the last PyCon PyData, I was thinking about changing jobs during my second round of Elternzeit. And I had 2 decisions, one decision to make in 2 directions. Do I take an expert role, or do I take a full leadership role? And I had worked as a head of data science before, and that transition had been kind of like natural. I slipped into the role. And I had made the reflection, from the 3 things I love working the most, first is working with data, first is teaching, and third is managing tasks and people. Yeah? So really, I cannot decide what I like most about the first one, but the third one was a clear third. And I had the opportunity to start, or to start in a complete management role. So I was thinking, should I do it or not? And what happened in the last year is I'm kind of happy. So I took the job, and I learned to embrace that role, that leadership role. And I thought, well, maybe I can talk about that. And I submitted the talk, and now I am here, not with a tech talk, but a talk about embracing leadership. So here are my top 6 tips to embrace your leadership role, as really from my personal reflection. But in order not to do it like completely anecdotal, and to put a bit data on it, I made a community survey 10 days ago, and I made a call of action and say, hey, everybody who has done this transition in the past, could you give me 2 minutes of your time and fill in a survey? And I will show you my reflection of my top 6 tips with a bit on data on top. And this is really not a talk about how to be a better management or a better leader. It's really how to enjoy it more. Or if you're thinking about transitioning, on how to, if you should do it or not, yeah? Because if you do, you might have this kind of problems. So, number 1, accept it. So, I didn't tell you my story of my broken dream, because for you to have pity on it. It's a story, I told it because it's a story of acceptance. Yeah? I had to accept there's no way I can code these things in 1 month while I'm working, taking care of 2 kids, and making life work. Yeah? So it's a story of an acceptance that the role as in management is a change in careers. And with that change, you need different expectations, yeah? Different expectations of what you can or cannot talk with depending on level of stress, of sleepless nights that you are wanting to sacrifice. It's like acceptance of other tasks, yes. Those meetings are your job. And it's other measurements of success, right? So while we progress in our careers of a data person, it's more or less the same tasks with different kind of autonomy, different types of responsibility, different types of difficulty. But then you change, really. And also your success measurements might not be, I managed to code this or teach that or go to this event, but really, I mean, bluntly said, if you're enabling your team, you're doing a good job, and that's what to focus is on. So it's accepting the change of careers. And that's sometimes not so obvious because the change of careers often, or in my case, the first time I did it, happened very quickly and without me really, really making a conscious decision. And I asked myself, so is this something that happens often? So the first question in my survey was, what was your primary reason to transition into a leadership management role? And you see the 25 people that answered, and in dark blue, it kind of happened naturally. It was the next step ahead, a bit of like, well, it happened. I didn't make a big decision. In teal, had to do it, someone had to do the work. A lot of people had to do it somehow. Then we have in orange, really, I was looking actually to have more influence in strategic decisions. And in yellow, some kind of, I like working, enabling people, variation thereof. Funny enough, the fifth category was money, and nobody did it for money. So that's also interesting. So we see from these reasons we can say like, okay, 3 out of 3/5 did it just, it kind of happened. The other part did it really consciously. It'd say like, I will change now because either I want to work with people or I'm looking for other tasks. And I was thinking, well, wouldn't it be obvious if the people that make the transition consciously are happier within the role? So I also asked, what's your general level of job satisfaction in your leadership role compared to your previous expert role? And you see from way less satisfying, more or less the same, more and way more. And here we see, I mean, we have a bunch of pretty satisfied, mostly satisfied leaders. You have to consider it's a small data set, a biased data set, so people that took the time to actually answer this maybe say like, oh yeah, I love what I'm doing and I have actually time. I'm not preparing my expert talk now, so I can just do that. But here you see, most people are more or less with the same satisfaction. And if we map the reason on top, we see, well, more or less the same distribution everywhere. So it doesn't matter. I mean, even people, I mean, lots of people that are in the blues, right, it kind of happened, are more or less on the same satisfaction, more on way more. There's of course not enough data to make like a statistical decision of this, if this is important or not, but you can be very happy or as happy as you were before, even if the transition just kind of happened. The second tip is shoshin. Shoshin is a Japanese concept that means keep a beginner's mindset. And we're here again at this change of careers, right? So we have a career as an expert, as an individual contributor, and then whoop, we changed careers. And not only because of that, but especially because of that. Keeping a beginner's mindset is super important. So it is, of course, means openness and eagerness to learn. And I mean, I am head of an academy, so of course I am all for lifelong learning. But also it means accepting, admitting mistakes, being very, very, very humble, especially about your leadership tasks, and asking for lots of feedback. I also, out of curiosity, asked the community, first, how many years of experience, and I said formal education plus job experience, people had before transitioning to a leadership role. And you see, that's a bunch of very experienced people, right? More than 3, 4, 10 years as an expert position. And then I asked the same question, but the same relevant years of education plus experience before starting the first management role. Zip. You saw, this is pretty cool. Zip. So lots of people had none experience at all, right? No formal education, not experience. Some had indeed. But also because of this, it's super important to know that, yes, you're new, you changed, you made this change in career, but you still are learning. And this, I think, is valid even if it's your second, your third, your fourth management role, because you're new to the team, you're new to the company, you're new to the colleagues, you're new, and you should be learning. Within this survey on LinkedIn, a nice thread started. Thanks, Lisa, for that, on like, what are the best ways to learn this? And thanks a lot for everybody that also contributed, also the ones sitting here. But there are indeed some very good books. I've think read 3.5 from those. And 3 of them are really made for the transition of like expert software person to managing, and they're 2 in general about being a good lead. Third, reversing is possible. For me, I think this is the thing that made me accept the position at that point. I was really, should I do it, should I not do it, should I do it? What if I do it now and I can only do that? And it says a third in my favorite tasks, and could I switch back? And then I thought, Paula, you're always preaching on how you can always learn and change and keep on learning. So, I mean, take your own advice. I was like, well, maybe it would be more difficult to change back or to change to another data position, but I should believe that that's possible. And this gave me at least the certainty to say, like, yeah, well, if it doesn't work, well, then it doesn't work. And then I will maybe spend some time looking for another job, but I can do that. And I was very curious also in asking the community, what do you think? Do you think that's reversible? Would you consider switching back to an expert creator role? And you see it's a close, like, most of them said yes, maybe, and well, not just maybe, yes, and the others said no. But there were different flavors of yes and no. So I had yes, the orange ones. I'm confident I can learn, again, what was missing. So there's a whole lot that were specific on that. Some yes, and 2 very cool ones that said, yes, I already have, actually. On the no, there are some like no because I really love this role, and some no because I don't have the expertise anymore. Then I mapped also to job satisfaction to see, and this was not really what I had expected, so I actually thought if you know that, that you can switch back, you would be more satisfied because you know it's an option, but it's actually more that people think it's an option because they're not so satisfied. Maybe, I mean, from the small data set we have there. 4th tip, and this is now more about your work. So all of those before were more about the transition, right? And now it's about the work. And the 4th one is about creative work. And this is a quote that is in this Managing Humans book, and basically says that engineering people, or I call them like creative people, they like to create, they like to build, right? And if you're busy doing many other things and you're not building, you will miss that, yeah? Or I miss that. I miss then, yeah, contributing, building something, seeing that I made something and I'm not just planning things. So I would say the tip here is find ways to do creative work. Again, I asked, do you manage to have enough time for creative work? And now raise your hand if you think yes is the majority. If the majority of points isn't yes, do you think that these 25 people in the majority have time for creative work? Raise your hand. 3, 4, okay. Now raise your hand if you think it's no. Okay. I thought the same, but So we have yes. The one in the middle is like no, but I don't need. I don't want to do creative work, and then the no. And that, I was very surprised, yeah, because it's, I mean, fairly enough, it's like a word that can be interpreted. I mean, for one, enough can be having a talk at PyCon, or for other people, enough is writing a paper every month, right? But for many people, they say, yes, I have enough time for creative work. And then I thought again, okay, then this has to map with the satisfaction thing. And no, it doesn't. So I haven't been able to find yet what actually maps to that satisfaction. But I think as a general tip, if you are the type that likes to create, find ways to create. Otherwise, you will be sometimes jealous of your team that can just focus and do things. And maybe you'll start micromanaging because you want to change the color of this slide just because you say, like, no, I want to build things and have a say on this. So it's a much healthy thing to just find your ways to be creative. Fifth, organizing. So next question in my survey was, assembly a common work with. Which percentage of your week do you spend in deep work? And I said, like, doing focus time, creative work, strategic work, meetings, email, and operative work, like going to events, giving talks, etc. And you actually here already see the average of the answers. So here are the 25 answers. So deep work the average was 20%. Strategic work, the average 47, operative work 25. So for the ones that said boring strategic work, also if you have not transitioned, consider this, that this is more or less distribution. And here I'm not so much on the distribution, but also on the different kind of tasks. I mean, if you're going to spend in average half of your week with doing email, meetings, etc., still want to manage to get some focus time work and still want to manage to make operative work, you have to get organized. If not, you will get very stressed. And now I'm really regretted that I didn't ask if people were more stressed in the management work, because there I'm pretty sure people are. So I think they're more or less the same, satisfied, but more stressed. And the one tip I would give to lower down stress would be try good ways to organize. Yeah? Find different project management strategies, task management, something that helps you get organized so that you don't feel the stress. 6, deep work. So there are proven benefits of having time to focus. One of the most recent studies about it was done by some MIT professors, where they had 76 businesses in an experiment with different days of meeting-free days. And I'm seeing a colleague taking a picture, so I know where that picture will land. And they saw a rise in productivity, an increase in cooperation, and a boost in job satisfaction by having 2 meeting-free days. Those 2 meeting-free days might be very difficult to get, mostly because all that time in meetings and email and Slack. And here, let's take a closer look at the common work week. Yeah? Which percentage of your week do you spend in strategic work? This in order of how much. And you see it's from 30% to 80% of the time. Then I also ask, if you could have assembled the dream work week, how much strategic work would you like to have? And then you see it here, and you say it's an average is minus 15%. Like, I think everybody but the first one that had less 30% wanted to have less. It's like, clearly I want to have less. Same with deep work, yeah? And here it's the sad reality from 10% to almost 50%. And here you see in the dream work week, boom, everybody wants to have more. Everybody but the ones that are really already having half of the time of deep work that are satisfied with that. So having 2 free meeting days a week might be, no, not might be, is for sure difficult to achieve. I guess pushing for 1 is already good, and that's because you need organizational change. Yeah? You need to convince lots of people. And I'm pretty happy that we're almost there to have 1. So. oh, there's a 7th tip before I finished. So there's not 6, it's 7. And the 7 are your peers. So when you are an individual contributor, you normally have more people in your team. And when you make the transition, be sure to still find your peers and keep them close. And your peers are, if you are as lucky as I am, maybe within your leadership team, and you have people there with whom you can rant about when things seem out of line, or people that want to fight for the deep work day, or that want to change things together. And if you don't have them in the leadership team, or if you also have them, but also take a look at your network. Take a look at the network of ex-colleagues, maybe, that are making similar decisions, and talk to them. Take a look at the community. We have a beautiful community here that it's clear that they still embrace you, and they're still interested in these topics, and they're also still interested in contributing with data, contributing with time, sharing your messages so that talks like this can be. So with this, here you have the summary of the 6, oh wait, there's the 7th missing, tips for embracing your leadership role. Thank you very much for being here, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Paula, for your talk. Someone wrote, thank you for your lecture with a big heart.
Thank you.
If you also want to keep your insights on this talk, just post them on social media, tag the PyCon DE, the PyData Berlin. We will go to the other questions now, like, do you have any specific algorithm to follow incidents and their solutions during work time of your application?
Work time of the application?
Do you have any specific algorithm to follow incidents and their solutions during work time of your application?
Well, I mean, I don't know how to answer that, but if it's about like tracking work time and tasks, I've tried many things, and I have this colleague that tracks to the last minute and is very successful at that, and I think his trick is doing a data project out of that. So he tracks everything, and then he makes himself like beautiful graphs on how he spends his days, what he can optimize, and things like that. So I think that might be a good way.
If I decided to become a manager, should I look for a managing role in a new company or grow with the current one?
That's a good question, and I guess it depends. If you stay in the same organization, at least you know the organization, right? So you don't have to start somewhere else new and learn that. But you might also still be a bit biased to still be more involved in the hands-on things, because you used to do that. So it might be easier from the just doing management to change, but even though you would have to learn more. But if you like your company, I wouldn't leave just to change the position.
How technical you have to be a good leader? Do you really need to know everything or just a lot? Or
you cannot know everything anymore because you're busy with other things, right? So you cannot know everything, and I do think it helps to know or have known what the team is doing, at least parts to empathize and to get involved. I guess it depends, right? It would also help not to have been involved, because then you wouldn't meddle so much, maybe. But I think the general opinion on most teams, they have had the tech knowledge before, or the domain knowledge before, and that helps, because you can still sometimes maybe also answer content questions.
Did you face specific challenges due to your gender in becoming a leader?
I think I'm lucky because no. So the answer is no, because I'm lucky. I mean, also I have been doing this within tech and education, where I think women are still see there, but I would say like in my leadership team, but the TO, I'm still the only woman. But I think no, because I'm lucky in the general sense. Maybe in the details, yes, but in the really, really, really small details of being very busy in my job with having very, very, very small child, which I have to take care of, and so that it's not gender specific, but often it is.
What was the biggest problem you encountered while making the transition to a leadership role? Did the team accept you in your role right away?
Also, luckily not. And the first transition I made was within the team. And I see one of the team members smiling. And it was not the easiest of the transition, but it turned out actually very, very well. And I think it's this part of saying openly, look, I'm here also to learn and to adapt with you together, and let's do this together. And then it was fine. Yeah.
What tools can you advise to get better in point 5, organizing your work?
I think that's one of the really difficult ones. So now I have like a huge dashboard of Kanban boards where I have my task by a priority and a big red column of what's due today. And yeah, so I would say like I use Kanban with priority and deadlines, and it's okay, but I'm still learning and improving for sure.
If possible, shall I strive for a mixed leadership role where I can still code in part-time, or is it better to have a clear cut?
I was thinking about talking about this because I think this might be good because you're still very hands-on as well. But in the first like leadership position I was doing like 50-50 or more like 80-80%, and it was very, very stressful. It was not sustainable. So I don't know if there's a position where you can really do 50-50 without working 150%. So I would say like make the transition. If you want, accept the transition actually. Accept it and then put it down.
How big was your survey's data set? How many people did
25. So all the data points that you saw, all the squares, each was a data point. So you were seeing all the data.
What do you think of companies where the only career path for senior leads to management?
Difficult. So I think really there has to be an option. There has to be an option to advance your career as an expert, because many people want to. And it's very, very, very bad to force people into leadership if they don't want to. Because, yeah.
How to change to leadership role being a generalist, not a specialist?
Even easier, I would say. Like, if you're already a generalist, it's even easier to transition because you need that scope.
Our last question is how to find a new managerial role to a new company without formally having that role in current company.
Have a good reason to do that and convince your hiring people that you want to do that. Right? I think if you say, like, I've never done it before, but I have the mindset, I know what it takes, I want to try it, you will be embraced because it's not very common that people consciously want to do it. So I think that would be my tips.
Paula, thank you for answering our question.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here.
So maybe one last thing. I have to jump to a train now, so I won't be around at the conference, but follow me on LinkedIn or something, and we can continue the conversation if you wanted to. Ciao.